everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, I've been wanting to do this for a while. I don't know when I first came across this, but there was an issue of the Ensign, May 1972, that's called the Special Holy Land issue. I've come across this because I've looked at some of the articles in here and I was like, what? Special Holy Land issue? And so I just want to at least read the first thing in this, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to read the first article. It's from the first presidency. It's actually, it's called, okay, the Holy Land, the first presidency speaks. And I guess it was compiled or written by James R. Clark. Who is that? I didn't know either, and so I looked it up. And, okay, at the time that this issue came out, 1972, it says, Clark worked as a professor of religious instruction at BYU from 1963 to 1975. After he retired in 1975, he continued to teach at BYU as an emeritus professor of religion. During his career, he published several books, including 6 volumes of Messages of the First Presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I have no idea why he would be involved in that unless he, like, I don't get it. If you know who he is and why he was doing that, please let me know. And then after that, and then 10 editions of the Story of the Pearl of Great Price. James Clark died on March 13th, 1995. Okay, so that's who he is. So he's done these things for the first presidency, and it's in 6 volumes, so whatever. Okay, but obviously this stands out, right? Now, if you're at all familiar with the Ensign, okay, or if you've been watching the channel for any length of time, you know that the further back in time you go, the more scholarly the articles were in the Ensign. There, of course, were like spiritual messages, and of course, everything had to do with the church and stuff like that. But when you compare today's Liahona, or an Ensign just before it was discontinued, it's the same thing now. You look at those articles. Typically, they're more focused on like doctrine and spiritual messages and stuff like that. Whereas before, like I said, they did more like scholarly articles about different things. So I always, that's why I think I tend to come across these older articles, because they talk about the stuff that we study on the channel in a little bit more detail than what you can find now. Okay, so what's interesting about this is the date. Okay, so this was 1972. Okay, so what had happened around that time? Well, we had the 6-Day War. In fact, let me look that up. When was the 6-Day War? I know it was in 1967, but okay, so it was June 5th to June 10th, 1967. Okay, so this was just a few years after that, 5 years after that. 2 year, or wait, what was it again? Let me see. 1 year earlier, the Independence Visitor Center was dedicated in Independence, Missouri. Again, it's currently a visitor center, but it's a temple in waiting. It was designed to be part of the 24 temple complex that was in the original plan for the city of Zion. It's the same proportions, the same measurements as what was revealed to Joseph Smith. So this is a temple. So they dedicate this in 1971, and then a year later they come out with the Holy Land special, and then let's see, 7 years after that, the BYU Jerusalem Center is announced, right? And the last, we've been talking about the BYU Jerusalem Center potentially becoming a temple. Many of you have sent me additional information, and I do plan to put that all together into one video, but I'll probably wait a few days or maybe next week, just so we don't get too BYU Jerusalem centered out. So But this is kind of like the era and the time frame that we're talking about. It's interesting timing for them to do this. And I'm not so sure if they had the BYU Jerusalem Center in mind when they did this, but given the fact that Jerusalem had just 5 years earlier been captured by the Israelis, that was huge, prophetically speaking. It was huge because it wasn't just enough for the Jews to be in Israel. Jerusalem specifically uh, ties into the prophecies of the last days. And so 1967, that happened. So, with all that said, let's go ahead and read this. I haven't read this yet. I might just read, not in this video, but I might just read every single article that's in this because I'm sure it's all interesting. I know some of it is because I've already read some of it, but not this article. Okay, central themes of the restoration have been the gathering of the dispersed seed of Abraham and the redemption of their holy lands. Okay, we're keenly focused on that right now, especially with President Nelson. Gathering scattered Israel. Right now, you know, you're adopted into Israel when you get baptized, or you become a part of the family of Israel when you're baptized, and you gather to wherever the nearest stake is to you. That's your gathering place. However, it seems like a good majority of Joseph is in the Americas, and the Jews, which, there's been these two kingdoms, the northern kingdom and then the southern kingdom. They are starting to come back from their dispersion, which has been primarily to Europe, and they are coming back little by little, and they're literally going back to their promised land, right? So there's several different gatherings that are happening when we're talking about geography. We have in the early days of the church, you gathered to where the church was in America. That continued for a while, and then it was sufficient. And now you gather to your stake, wherever that's at throughout the entire world, and that's the place where you're supposed to gather. And then the Jews, although they're not accepting even really Christ at this point, they are gathering. They are gathering to the land of Palestine. I really don't like to call it Palestine because that's the name that the Romans gave it, and it was hearkening back to the Philistines. But I don't even like to call it Canaan because that was so Israel. Okay, they're going back to Israel, and there are some that are starting to believe in Christ, and this is called the Messianic movement, and that's a really interesting thing that's happening. And I think that it's a step toward accepting the restored church and the gospel. And so anyway, interesting things are happening. Okay. As the Latter-day Saints, a portion of modern Israel, were being driven from their homes and lands in 1845, the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, which was presiding over the church, issued a circular that drew parallels between the plight of ancient and modern Israel. It said, in part, quote, "The spirit of prophecy has long since portrayed in the Book of Mormon what might be the conduct of this nation towards the Israel of the last days. The same evil that premeditated against Mordecai awaited equally all the families of his nation. Two cannot walk together except they be agreed. Jacob must be expatriated, while Esau held dominion. It was wisdom for the child of promise to go far away from him that thirsted for blood. Even the heir of universal kingdoms fled precipitately into a distant country until they sought to murder. They that sought to murder were dead." There's a footnote for that. Let's just see what that is. Documentary History of the Church, Volume 7. Okay. I'm going to zoom out a little bit because my screen's kind of big and I'm like moving my head as I'm reading. Okay. Now, this is interesting because this is very much like, again, President Nelson's talk that he gave. Let's see. I'm going to do Russell M. Nelson, Exodus Repeated. I've brought this up a few times on the channel. And he draws very strong parallels between the pioneer trek in the early days of the church and Moses as he led Israel out of Egypt and into the wilderness and guided them in the wilderness. There's a definite parallel there. In fact, Russell M. Nelson goes so far as to quote Jeremiah. Sorry, I have to bring this up every time. He quotes Jeremiah 23 verses 7 through 8, which is always used by the people that believe that there's one main group of the 10 lost tribes hidden somewhere. But President Nelson uses it in this way. The scripture is, "Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that they shall no more say, The Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, but the Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country, and from all countries whither I have driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land." Okay, so it's interesting. Okay. Sorry. Prior to the restoration, Moroni, a messenger sent from the presence of God, visited Joseph Smith in 1823 and quoted prophecies from the Old Testament, including this verse from Joel. Quote, "And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord hath said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call." 10 years after Moroni's visit and 3 years after the organization of the church, Joseph Smith wrote, by commandment, a letter of warning to all people. The letter contains this statement, quote, The time has at last arrived when the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob has set his hand again the second time to recover the remnants of his people, which have been left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea, and with them to bring in the fullness of the Gentiles, and establish that covenant with them, which was promised when their sins should be taken away. This covenant has never been established with the house of Israel, nor with the house of Judah, for it requires two parties to make a covenant, and those two parties must be agreed, or no covenant can be made. But the tribe of Judah will return to Old Jerusalem. Judah shall obtain deliverance at Jerusalem. These are testimonies that the Good Shepherd will put forth his own sheep and lead them out from all nations, where they have been scattered in a cloudy and dark day, to Zion and to Jerusalem. Let's just look at that footnote, just in case. That's DHC Volume 1. Okay. The keys to gather, quote, Israel from the four parts of the earth, end quote, were bestowed upon Joseph Smith by Moses, ancient prophet and lawgiver of Israel, during his appearance in the Kirtland Temple on April 3rd, 1836. On April 6th, 1840, the First Presidency issued a letter of credentials for Orson Hyde as a missionary to Palestine. I'm always impressed, you guys, that so soon after the church was organized, one of the first things was that they sent Orson Hyde to Jerusalem, right? For that historic mission to consecrate the land for the Jews to return to the land. It's interesting that they did it on April 6th, right? So 10 years after the church was organized, on April 6th, the First Presidency issued this letter for Orson Hyde. He was instructed to visit the cities of London, Amsterdam, Constantinople, and Jerusalem, and to, quote, converse with the priests, rulers, and elders of the Jews. And by the way, Orson Hyde, he actually had a dream, or it was a dream, but it was like a vision dream where he saw himself going to these cities. We've read that before. Okay, Orson Hyde's mission was accomplished, and the Holy Land was dedicated. And today, in case you didn't know, let's see, if you go to Google Maps and go to Jerusalem, let's go here, open up Google Maps. You don't even have to search for it. Okay, so zoom in. Okay, so there's the Temple Mount right there, right? You zoom in, and then right up here in green, right here. Look, the Dome of the Rock is right here. Where's Gethsemane? I think it's like over here somewhere. Mount of Olives. There's the BYU Jerusalem Center. Anyway, oh, here's Gethsemane right here. Right here. Look how close to Gethsemane the Orson Hyde Memorial Gardens is. To me, that's pretty incredible. Let's look at it really quick. Let's do a 360 view. Right here, there's like a stone in Hebrew, Arabic, and then English. The Jerusalem National Park, Orson Hyde Memorial Garden, donated by the Orson Hyde Foundation, Salt Lake City, Utah, through the Jerusalem Foundation. That's crazy in such like prime real estate. Just this little, here's like a pathway right here. You look over that way, I guess it continues on down that way. And then from here you can see, look, you can see the Dome of the Rock right there. And then I guess Gethsemane would just be kind of like, if that wall wasn't in the way, it'd just be like right there. It's insane. Okay. So anyway, okay, the prophet Joseph Smith said in the church's general conference on April 6th, 1843, quote, Judah must return, Jerusalem must be rebuilt, and the temple and water come out from under the temple, and the waters of the Dead Sea be healed. It will take some time to rebuild the walls of the city and the temple, and all this must be done before the Son of Man will make his appearance. There will be wars and rumors of wars. Well, we have definitely had plenty of those. Now, in regards to the Dead Sea, let's see, Dead Sea, oh, what are they called? I'm just going to do fresh water. There's been stuff going on with the Dead Sea recently. The Dead Sea is dying. Dead Sea research. There's like these, oh, what are they called? Hold on, let me go to Israel 365. Israel 365news.com. They probably have something on it. Dead Sea healed. Secret river discovered connecting Jerusalem to Dead Sea. Let me open that up. The woman behind the viral Dead Sea prophecy coming to life. The fulfillment of Dead Sea prophecy has begun. Almost 10 times saltier than the ocean, nothing can live in the Dead Sea's hypersaline environment, or so scientists thought until recently. Scientific research has proved the existence of life at the bottom of the sea due to a unique set of circumstances. Signs of life have begun appearing on its very shores, precisely as written in the book of the prophets. Let's see. I don't need to highlight it. What am I doing? A young woman on a nature hike was shocked recently when she discovered freshwater ponds with fish on the shores of the Dead Sea. Samantha Siegel, a Jewish woman living in Jerusalem, often takes trips to the desert and the ancient body of water. On a recent visit, she encountered an incongruous sight with powerful implications, a prophecy appearing before her eyes that seemed to contradict the laws of nature. The Dead Sea is, as its name implies, dead. More than 400 meters below sea level, it is the lowest point on dry land. No life can exist in its ultra salty waters, and its shores are coated with a thick layer of salt that kills any plant. Anyway, I'm not going to go into this too much, but yeah, there's been more fresh water and stuff showing up there at the Dead Sea. On Wednesday, when is this? This is 2016. Oh, this is the guy that I interviewed, Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz. I interviewed him. On Wednesday, Breaking Israel News reported to the world the discovery of freshwater ponds teeming with fish and wildlife on the shores of the Dead Sea, precisely as written in the prophets. Yeah, so it's like starting to happen. And gosh, I don't know the word for it, but there's like, so the land around the Dead Sea, there's starting to be these, like, the earth is like cracking, opening up. There's like these dips, depressions, whatever, that have water in them, and it's like fresh water. And it's like a recent, it's a relatively recent phenomenon that's occurring. So I think that it's happening, you guys. I really do. Secret river discovered connecting Jerusalem to Dead Sea. A previously unknown river in the Israeli wilderness was revealed to the world. Channel 11 Can News, Israel's public broadcasting channel, reported a 6-mile long river that wound its way through deep desert canyons near the Dead Sea. The region is particularly arid and very little natural water exists there. The river is within the concession area of the Dead Sea Works, an Israeli potash plant in Sodom, on the coast of the Dead Sea within private land. Okay, da 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 da. So anyway, you can read that on your own. I'll put the links for these in the description below if you want to read those. Okay, so the temple hasn't been built unless the BYU Jerusalem Center will become that temple, and nobody knows that because no one knows the Lord's plans. But I'll talk about that in a future video because somebody sent me something really interesting that was published in this news article back around the time that this happened, but that'll be for a future video. 2 months later, on June 11th, 1843, a large assembly of saints met at the temple stand in Nauvoo, and the prophet, taking his text from Matthew 23, verse 37, stated that he had been asked, quote, "What was the object of gathering the Jews, or the people of God in any age of the world?" He answered, quote, "The main object was to build unto the Lord a house whereby he could reveal unto his people the ordinances of his house and the glories of his kingdom, and teach the people the way of salvation. For there are certain ordinances and principles that, when they are taught and practiced, must be done in a place or house built for that purpose." Brigham Young, in the Council of the 12, who held the keys of the presidency following the death of Joseph Smith, sent Wilford Woodruff to England with a letter of greeting to the elders and saints in Great Britain. The letter contained these instructions, quote, "The God of Israel will communicate to his disciples all things necessary for the building up of his kingdom on the earth until Israel is gathered. Yea, even all the blood of Abraham scattered over all the earth, Zion established, Jerusalem rebuilt, and the whole earth be filled with the glory and knowledge of God." End quote. After the Mormon exodus to the west, the First Presidency in 1849 issued these instructions to the saints, quote, "Gather the outcasts of Judah and the remnants of Ephraim from the four winds to the place of their inheritance, that Zion may be built up, Jerusalem reestablished, and the glory of the latter day fill the earth." Now, you guys, I don't know that there was much that they could do back then to build up Jerusalem. That's something that the Jews themselves would have to do. But what we just talked about, Orson Hyde going to the Holy Land and dedicating it for the gathering of Judah. And he's not the only one that actually went there, by the way. Let's see, LDS dedications of Palestine. Let's just look for that. See if I can find that again. Maybe it's in the footsteps of Orson Hyde. There's actually been a bunch of people that have gone over there after Orson Hyde. Yeah, this is it right here. Okay, so these are different times that people went to the Holy Land to dedicate it and do, like, just, I guess, give like additional dedicatory prayers. So the first one, 1841, Orson Hyde. Okay, and here's like the different topics found in the blessing. So Orson Hyde blessed and dedicated the land, mention Israel, Jews gather, welfare of the church, prophecies fulfilled, confound enemies, soften hearts, rebuild Jerusalem. As far as rebuilding Jerusalem, I guess that had been prayed for 3 times in the Holy Land. Once by Orson Hyde, once from George Albert Smith, and then another time in 1902 by F. Lyman. In all of them blessed and dedicated the land. Each one of these times: 1841, 1873, 1898, 1902, 1927, 1933. That's a lot of dedications. And you have to wonder why. Like, I haven't looked into this. It probably explains it here in this BYU article, but that's a lot of dedications. Maybe it's the idea that, sometimes you have to pray a lot for something to happen, or you have to show your dedication to the Lord and keep asking until things happen. What's interesting is that the last one was in 1933, and then about a decade later, a little bit more than a decade later, in 1948, it actually happened. The nation of Israel was born, right? And since that time, since 1933, there haven't been any more dedications, at least that not in this article anyway, and none that I know of. So I don't know. I don't know if that's what it means here. Let's read it again. After the Mormon exodus to the west, the first presidency in 1949, so they're in Utah by this point, issued these instructions to the saints: gather the outcasts of Judah. How do you do that other than dedicating the land and just coming across them during missionary work? How do you do that? I don't know. Again, we know that there are Jews in the church today that have converted. So maybe that's, I don't know. And the remnants of Ephraim from the four winds to the place of their inheritance, that Zion may be built up, Jerusalem reestablished, and the glory of the latter day fill the earth. There was, I want to point this out really quick. Let's see. 2 missionaries died in Palestine, LDS. I'm not sure. Well, okay, the Haifa German cemetery. Maybe this is. You can find this story, and somebody actually sent it to me, but I don't want to open it up right here, right now, in case their email address shows up and they don't want their email to be seen. Elder John A. Clark, who died in Haifa. Do you know where Haifa is? Haifa, Israel. Okay, so this was before Israel was a nation, as far as like becoming a nation in 1948. Haifa is right there. It's squarely within Israeli territory. It's west of the Sea of Galilee, west of Nazareth, right? And this mission, if I remember right, it was like the Turkey mission. Let's see. Let me search Turkey. No. Man, I don't know. Whatever. But we've had missionaries there, you guys. We've had missionaries there before the world changed. This was before World War I. Anyway, you've had missionaries there. 2 of them died, and they're the ones that made it possible for the BYU Jerusalem Center to be constructed, because they gave legal evidence that the church had a presence in Israel before it became a state. That was like one of the requirements. So it's thanks to him, Elder John A. Clark, and then there was also a German elder. The first continue. Well, I don't know. I can't remember the names. It's here somewhere probably. Anyway, that's interesting. So we've been over there. Obviously, there's a lot of Jews in America, Europe, and I'm sure many of them have already converted. Anyway, sorry, long tangent. Let's continue. In their 5th general epistle to the church, issued on April 1851, the First Presidency wrote, quote, "The gathering of Israel has already commenced. Judea is receiving its ancient inhabitants, and the holy city is rebuilding. which is one prominent sign of the near approach of the Messiah. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints established a mission in Turkey. There it is. Established a mission in Turkey in 1884. Utah was not a state yet. It became a state in 1896. On September 22nd, 1889, the first Arab converts in the mission were baptized in Aintab. I just want to see if that's in Turkey. Aintab. Yeah, look at that. Looks like it goes by like a different name now. Let's see, where is this at exactly? Yeah, right there. Right, pretty close to Syria. There's Aleppo across the border. We've had missionaries in Turkey, okay? And at that time, it was the Ottoman Empire. So if you're going by the definition of we have to have missionaries in every single land, the Ottoman Empire was really big. Let's see, Ottoman Empire. Let's take a look. Let's go to Wikipedia, of course. Look at that. The Ottoman Empire. So let's see, that's 1683. I don't know. So if you're just like looking at the non-striped areas, that's a lot of land. That includes Algeria, Libya, Morocco, Greece, Turkey, Israel, Syria, Iraq. So I don't know. Has that been fulfilled now? Missionaries have been to all the nations of the world, because this was a nation. It was a nation, and it included all these places. I don't know. Okay. September 22nd. Sorry, guys. We better look at that. Let's see if Rosh Hashanah or something was going on. Let's see. Jewish feast days. Jewish calendar. Customize. What was it? It was 1889. Okay, let's go down here. 1889. Create calendar. September 22nd. Well, it was the week of Rosh Hashanah. It was on a Sunday, and then Rosh Hashanah was a few days later. All right. In 1897, President Wilford Woodruff and his counselors wrote the following to their, quote, beloved brethren and sisters in Turkey. Quote, do not discuss the time of the coming of Christ in an unprofitable manner. There is a time appointed, and only God knows it. He has not revealed it, but the appointed time will surely come long before most people are prepared. That's interesting. Wilford Woodruff says that the second coming is going to come at a time long before most people are prepared. This we know, it is not far distant, for the signs of his coming are now very plain. Okay, once again, it's more of that language all the way back in 1897. And by the way, 1893, that's when the Salt Lake Temple was dedicated, and Wilford Woodruff said that the four angels of the four corners of the earth that were waiting to hurt the earth, but they were waiting for the 144,000 to be sealed first. He said that those angels were released 4 years before this, right here, right? So for those signs of his coming are now very plain. Jeez, I'd like to see like what things look like to them back then, because they're crystal clear now in my mind. Okay, but he continues, but there is much to do to prepare for that great event. Many of the honest have not yet heard of his great latter-day work. Zion must be fully established. Jerusalem must be rebuilt by the Jews. The 10 tribes must return from the north. The Native Americans who are of the house of Israel must be converted and become workers in his cause. And many more of the different branches of the house of Israel must return to the promised lands and be prepared to meet him and to receive him, for he will be their king when he comes. But but Jared, he just talked about the 10 lost tribes. Well, he didn't say that they were in the North Pole. That's the thing. Like, people will see this term, like they'll see 10 lost tribes must return from north, and that instantly means in their minds, oh, there's a main group that's hidden. Or or just maybe there's another way of looking at that, and it's that most of them are in the European nations. Not all of them came when the church was established. Many of them did, right? Many from Europe were part of the early pioneers, but there's still many more that are still there that need to return from those northern countries. Again, Bruce Armaconkey makes it pretty clear in Millennial Messiah, and it seems like a lot of general authorities quote from Millennial Messiah. Anyway, continuing, a Jewish nation home, a Jewish national home in Palestine, proposed in the Balfour Declaration on November 2nd, 1917, was difficult to establish. When Arabs and Jews were still fighting for land control in 1921, President Heber J. Grant said in the April General Conference that year, 1921. Weren't we just talking about 1921? Oh, that was on my other channel. There's a hurricane going on right now, Hurricane Ian, and the strongest hurricane to hit Tampa Bay before this one, Hurricane Ian, was in 1921. It was a Category 3. Anyway, okay, that just ringed a bell. Okay, so this is Heber J. Grant, president of the church in 1921. Quote, by the authority of the holy priesthood of God that has been again restored to the earth, and by the ministration under the direction of the prophet of God, apostles of the Lord Jesus Christ have been to the Holy Land and have dedicated that country for the return of the Jews. And we believe that in due time of the Lord they shall be in the favor of God again. And let no Latter-day Saint be guilty of taking any part in any crusade against these people. Yeah, so again, there's been many people ready to go. There's been many that have gone there. So in total, we've had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 separate, I don't know if they were all general authorities. I don't recognize, oh no, not 8, 9, because there was A. Lund and F. Hintz. I guess they went at the same time. So 9 different, at the very least, general authorities. I'm sure that they were probably all apostles at the time that they went. I'm not going to look that up right now. But yeah, there had been a lot sent by 1921. In fact, 1921, okay, go back. Where is it? In fact, 1921, they were going to send, after that, 6 years later, James E. Talmage and then Jay Witso. This must have been one trip because it's only 10 days apart. He must have given a prayer one day and then 10 days later did it again. So after this talk by Heber J. Grant, 2 more would go to Palestine to dedicate the land for the gathering. Okay. On March 2nd, 1959, the First Presidency issued a letter to stake presidents and stake mission presidents, commending the efforts of Elder LeGrand Richards of the Council of the 12, who under their direction made an earnest effort to bring Jewish people to an investigation of the restored gospel. The letter also inaugurated a stake missionary program among Jewish people in large cities with sizable numbers of Jews. Okay, I never knew about this. Some instructions in this letter are perhaps a timely conclusion. Quote, we deem it wise to counsel stake missionaries as well as other groups within the stake not to foster or attempt to promote movements relating to the much mooted question pro or against Jewish people. We think that generally speaking, the Mormon people have understood the Jews and have probably been more friendly to them than any other people. And with our concept of universal brotherhood, it is untenable that we as a people should entertain prejudice and ill will against any of our father's children. excuse me, the projection of any issue of this character would in all probability be attended with misunderstandings and debate, and without substantial profit to anyone. We have a message for the Jews. We shall be most happy to give it to them if they will listen. In connection with the subject of this letter, we take occasion to call the attention of our missionaries to the unwisdom of any attempt to set dates and times for the fulfillment of prophecy. We accept the revelations. We believe in the prophecies. The time of fulfillment is in the unfathomable wisdom of the Lord. It is well to teach all people to be prepared for the fulfillment of prophecy and leave all else to him. Thus, we see that for nearly 150 years, the First Presidency has taught the doctrines of the gathering of the dispersed seed of Abraham and their restoration to their holy lands. And that's the end of this article. I find it really interesting that they actually had this program. Let me just read it again. The letter also inaugurated a stake missionary program among Jewish people in large cities with sizable numbers of Jews. You guys, you have to remember, okay, Jewish world population map. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, this is perfect. In the world, you guys, so we've already very, very early on been to Israel. We've actually had missionaries in Israel as part of the Turkey mission. Okay, these purple dots represent relatively where the Jews in the world are. And the two biggest circles are Israel and the United States. In fact, let's see if there's like a Jewish population by country that will work. I'm sure there's a table here. Okay, so the country with the most Jews is Israel, and close behind is the United States. Okay, close behind is the United States. And then you look at all these other countries, and these are countries where missionaries, a lot of them are countries where missionaries already are. Not the West Bank, but Canada. Okay, United States, yes. Canada, yes. United Kingdom, Argentina, Russia, Australia, Germany, Brazil, South Africa. So there's been plenty of opportunity, and obviously it's going to continue until the Lord comes. And just as a reminder, let me pull this up. In fact, let me check on this. Let me look at my my questionnaire. Which tribe of Israel are you from? It's anonymous. Okay, we got a few more responses to it. I'll put the link for this in the description below in case you haven't answered. And as of right now, we have, yeah, I think this is the same. 6 Judah, 6 Benjamin, and 4 Levi. Those 3 tribes put together is what we typically call Jews today. So out of the 866 people that responded to my, did the poll, 16 of them, 16 of them would be Jewish. Maybe not, some of them maybe according to the Jewish definition where it's like through the matrilineal line. Others may be Jewish by the patriarchal blessing way of looking at it, and ultimately that's the only way to look at it is, we don't really know. All we know is that what determines your tribe is your patriarchal blessing, and there probably is a lot to it when it comes to physical, your physical characteristics, your genes. There is a physical aspect to it. Now, President Oaks has said that patriarchal blessings are not DNA tests, although it probably does kind of go hand in hand a little bit, at least. However, the blood of Israel has been so scattered and intermixed that at this point, there's not really a pure anything. However, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that, these 6 people that are Judah, maybe they do have more Judah than the other tribes in their veins, whatever that means, whether it's DNA or whatever, however the Lord determines it. We also know that there are some that are adopted into the church, although I've already done a video talking about how there's different prophets and apostles that have said that almost literally everybody that joins the church is of scattered Israel. If we were able to actually do the family tree for everybody, and that there's very, very few Gentiles, like pure Gentiles, that actually join the church. But I'm not going to do that whole video again. Oh, Asher. That's one of the ones that I was missing, I think. Now, the only one I don't have is Zebulun. So we got Ephraim, Manasseh, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Dan, Reuben, Simeon, Gad, Asher, Issachar. Yeah, I'm just missing one. Now, there are some people, if you didn't know, there are some people that, and this is I guess this is according to the patriarchs' handbook that they're given. It does say that people don't have to be assigned one of the 12, or they don't necessarily have to have their lineage declared through one of the 12 tribes. That it could just be as part of the house of Abraham, even though Abraham is the, let's see, great granddad of the patriarchs of the tribes of Israel, right? That's just how it is. And I think I saw where, well, I'm not going to say that, but some have also been told that simply Joseph is who they descend through without being sorted out into either Manasseh or Ephraim. So we have those here as well, Abraham and just Joseph. But as far as the tribes go, now I have them all except for Zebulun. 1 Issachar, 1 Asher, 1 Gad, 1 Simeon, 1 Reuben, 2 Abraham, 2 Dan, 4 Levi, 6 Benjamin, 6 Judah, 15 Joseph, 42 Manasseh, 783 Ephraim. So that's how it plays out. If you haven't taken this yet, feel free to do so. I'll put it in the description below, and you can take the poll. It's a link to my Google Drive where it has this thing called Google Forms, and that's what it is. So anyway, this is really interesting, and I think it would be good to actually do these other articles. Let me know what you think in the comments if you want to go through the rest of these. If you want a little preview, because maybe if everyone's like, no, let's not do that, then I won't do it. But if there's interest, then I will. So we got, these are the articles. We got The Quest for a Peculiar People by Rodney Turner. What is a Jew? E.L.V. Richardson. Jewish Migrations, Victor L. Ludlow. Guardians of the Covenant. Not to be confused with Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians... Sorry, it's not that funny. Mary Pratt Parrish. Hebrew Manners and Customs, Sidney B. Sperry. I know a lot of you like him. I know there's a lot of fans of Victor L. Ludlow, Sidney B. Sperry. Let's see, we got some poetry. Probably won't do those. Masada, Citadel of Freedom's Cry, Gerald Johansson. The Birth of Modern Israel by W. Cleon Skousen. I like him a lot. I don't agree with him about the 10 tribes, but he's super good, and I know a lot of you like him too. Religion in Israel Today, L.S.T. Rasmussen. Foods of Israel, Irene Ricks. Day-to-Day Life in Israel, David B. Galbraith, and Blossom as the Rose, Reed C. Durham Jr., To Love a Country, Laurel G. Cole, Judah Must Return. That sounds interesting. Eldon Ricks, The Future of the Holy Land, Daniel H. Ludlow. I know that we've looked at this one. It's a super interesting one, The Future of the Holy Land. So I'm telling you, if nothing else, that would be a good one to go over, like in its entirety. And then For the Law Shall Go Forth from Zion by William E. Barrett. So yeah, these all seem really, really good. Really good. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, for me, the big takeaway is that there was this program specifically for Jews in the 50s. That's really cool. And then there was a lot of other interesting things said here as well. Excuse me. Okay, if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.